So consciousness and awareness are almost the same thing, but they're really two sides of the same coin. Um, so consciousness can also be thought as awareness or the present act of observation, aka the conscious observer that is the faculty within us. And that faculty allows for the awareness or observation of ourselves in our reality. So to be conscious can also be represented as being aware or being present. Now, you can also state it this way, okay? To be conscious means to be aware of all thoughts, all feelings or sensations in the world around you. So awareness is the active quality of noticing or knowing an experience. And if you go even deeper, you can say it this way. You can say consciousness is the light frequency, and the awareness is the direction that the conscious observer is projecting that light. Consciousness is really the space in which all experiences unfold, and awareness is more like the capacity within us to notice as the experiences unfold. It's that active observation, that conscious observation. So everything is happening in consciousness. Okay? There is only consciousness. What we call the world is more of a projection within the space of consciousness, which is more like a hologram. And this implicates light and sound and so on. So it's not that you are in the world, okay? It's that the world is appearing within your space of consciousness, in your field of consciousness. So you never experience the world directly, actually. You experience it with your conscious awareness of the world. That's why the way that you experience life is more as a result of your perception of the world around you, so to speak. Okay, so a good analogy is more like this. Everything appears like a movie, and that movie or your life is on the screen of consciousness. It's materialized from the stream or the field of consciousness. The screen itself never changes. It's always there. That's the field of consciousness. And the movie, however, does, because that's what you're manifesting through the field of consciousness. This doesn't mean that the world isn't real. It doesn't mean that the world isn't real. It's about acknowledging that everything we experience, everything that we see in our world is actually experiential. It happens in consciousness, and we perceive it through our conscious awareness. There's a term called panpsychism, which is related to quantum consciousness, actually. And this is the view that consciousness is the fundamental and universal feature of reality. That everything has an intrinsic quality of consciousness, aka a subjective quality. Everything has some basic level of sentience. So consciousness isn't emerging from something, but rather it's everywhere, embedded and immersed in everything. And it's the fundamental fabric of our reality. Matter is an expression of consciousness. I want to introduce Federico Faggin at this point because he's a phenomenal physicist. He was actually initially a CPU inventor turned physicist, and he's one of those individuals who has written and talked and explained this idea of quantum consciousness or panpsychism. And so at this point, I want to share a couple clips from him that complement everything that I've said, so you can get an even bigger idea of this introduction to consciousness.
It's crazy, but it is much closer to the truth.
Federico Faggin invented the first CPU, the touchpad, and worked on the first neural nets, which gave him the hope of creating conscious AI.
It took me 30 years to figure out that mathematics is created by consciousness, and therefore I cannot explain consciousness with mathematics. Many physicists think that there is emergent properties in the purely classical world. It cannot be. Emergentism requires quantumness.
Like some other renowned physicists, Faggin is convinced that consciousness cannot be a classical phenomenon and has to be quantum. But his theory of quantum consciousness goes beyond any theories on the table.
We have to go way beyond Schrödinger's equation. We have to go into Dirac's equation, but even beyond that, we have to go to quantum fields and quantum information. And quantum information goes beyond the concepts of quantum fields. In fact, the only physicist that has been able to show that quantum physics derives from quantum information is an Italian physicist, Giacomo Mauro D'Ariano.
I absolutely love what Federico Faggin has to say about quantum consciousness. So I want to finish one more statement from him, because I think it really truly represents the core of what quantum consciousness really is and what our experience is and what it means for the nature of the reality that we're living in.
Quantum information is the representation of inner experience, and the collapse of the wave function is the representation of the free will. What more do you want?